யாருங்க? இல்லையே. நான் பேசுறது கேக்குதா? நான் பேசுறது கேக்குதா? கேக்குதுல்ல? இல்ல. கேக்கலையே. பேசுங்க.
ஹரி கேக்குதா? ஹரி
கேக்குது கேக்குதுங்க.
ஓகேங்க ஓகே.
சரி, மாத்தி விட்டுட்டுமா உங்களைய?
அது ஒரு 5 நிமிஷம் இருங்க ஐயா, வந்து ஆரம்பிச்சா நீங்க மாத்தி விட்டுருங்க ப்ளீஸ்.
சரி, இப்போதைக்கு மியூட் அண்ட் என்ட்ரி கொடுத்துட்றேன். நீங்க ஒண்ணு
நம்ம அவனுக்கு மட்டும் அவனை பிரசிடென்ட் மாத்திடுவோம், நீங்க அது மட்டும் பண்ண போதும், எனக்கு அது பண்ண தெரியாது.
அது ஒண்ணு ரைட் கிளிக் பண்ணீங்கன்னா மாத்திக்கலாம், அவ்வளவுதான். வேற ஒண்ணும் இல்ல. ரைட் கிளிக் பண்ண அவங்க பேரு, நீங்க போன்ல தானே வச்சிருக்கீங்க?
ஆமா.
அந்த பேரு ஏதோ ஒரு பேரு இப்ப அமுத்திட்டீங்கனாலே மேக் பிரசன்டர்னு காட்டும், அவ்வளவுதான்.
ஓகே ஓகே, நான் இருங்க அவன் கூப்பிடுறேன் மறுபடியும்.
என்எஸ்கே சார், என்எஸ்கே கேக்குதுங்களா?
கேக்குது, உங்களுக்கு நான் பேசுறது கேக்குதா?
நீங்க கேக்குது. இந்த இது லிங்க் எல்லாத்துக்கும் அனுப்பிட்டீங்களா பார்ட்டிசிபென்ட்க்கு?
எல்லாத்துக்கும் வந்துச்சு.
ஓகே ஓகே சார். இதுல ஸ்பீக்கர் ஜாயின் பண்ணிட்டாரா சார்?
இல்லைங்க, அவர் 11 o'clock வரேன், நான் கூப்பிட்டேன்னா வருவாரு.
சரி ஓகே. சரி, நான் அப்புறம் உங்களை ஆஸ்ட் ஆக்கிடவா? நீங்க ஜஸ்ட் ட்ரையல் பாக்குறீங்களா?
ரெக்கார்டிங்கா?
ரெக்கார்டிங் இல்ல, நீங்க ஜஸ்ட் ஃபாஸ்டா பண்ணிடுறேன். அப்புறம் நீங்க அவரை மட்டும் ரிசர்வ் பர்சன் ஆகிட்டீங்க.
சரி, எதுக்கு இருங்க ஒரு 5 minutes.
ஓகே ஓகே
அவர் வந்தாலும் போயிடலாம்.
ஓகே ஓகே.
Hello, Kumar.
Hey, good morning, Sendil. This is Kumar Raja here. Is my voice audible? Is my voice audible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And yeah, I think your voice is little feeble, Sendil. Maybe.
Just hang on.
Good morning to all of you. I am Dr. Karpsami, HOD Mechanical, speaking to you. It's my pleasure to welcome every one of you for this wonderful session, Data Analytics for Mechanical Engineers. I am very much happy to welcome Dr. Kumar Raja Singh, one of the alumnus or one of the prestigious alumni of the department. Welcome, Dr. Kumar Raja Singh.
Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
How are you, Kumar Raja Singh?
Sir, I'm doing good, sir. So I'm doing good. Thank you. I
Okay.
hope the same from
Very,
you
very
as well,
happy.
sir. Yeah.
We are also doing well. We are also safe. How about your experience in working after COVID-19? Is
So,
there any difference? Or?
there are a couple of differences. One, I would say the environment has changed because working at home. Otherwise, from the technology perspective, it is connected seamlessly. That is good about it. And third one is the working hours got extended. We work for 9 hours, but now it's going to be, anytime, we pick up a call and things like that. So a little bit of, the cultural change has happened. But otherwise, the productivity standpoint, overall, things have improved is what TCS is mentioning, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. Before COVID-19, whenever we invite Kumar Raja Singh, he used to say, "Sir, I could not come because of lot of work." Now it is possible to have Kumar Raja Singh online. Literally, we are available every time. So that is a change I can visualize after conducting webinars and after conducting webinars, inviting you people for our requirements. It's changed, and the perspective has really changed. I can feel that everybody is available any point of time. So that change we are also feeling after having you in the webinar at this time. Otherwise, very difficult to have Dr. Kumar Raja Singh on Monday, 11 o'clock. Maybe you may be busy with your office schedule, but really it's a happy moment to have you in the webinar. I can recall that during the second year of commencement of our institution, you have joined in SREC for your BE Mechanical Engineering. What is your feeling about that, Kumar Raja Singh? That time, I can say only limited infrastructure was there. Last year, you have visited for the department meetings to discuss about the curriculum. Can you see any changes right now in the college?
Certainly, sir, because the moment I joined the organization and this 20 years of over the years, I could see a lot of changes, and particularly the Department of Mechanical Engineering has got quite a lot of able and capable faculty members, and then the facilities things around are quite have increased a lot. So definitely we can see that there is a progress. There is a tremendous effort has gone ahead in the department. I can be sure of. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes, I can also feel that because I am working here for the past 23 years. Our department is one of the strongest department in the state, I can say like that, in the self-financing category. Because very good experienced faculty members are continue working in our department. we are taking a different spectrum in the academics. Like as usual, there will be a classroom teaching. Then we are also interacting with the industries. We are taking lots of projects for the industries jointly with other departments. And apart from that, department has a good experience in taking the funded sponsored project for the research activities. These are all the differences we brought in the working of the department. Initially, we have concentrated only on teaching learning process during your period. After that, there is a gradual improvement, and we have to look after all the aspects related to teaching learning process. So I could feel this difference in the department.
Sure, sir. Yeah.
I can also recall that whenever I visit IIT for taking some literature or some visiting some laboratory, I used to call at you. You always respond, and I have enjoyed the stay with you during the IIT about a decade back.
Yes, sir.
While you are doing your PhD, it's a memorable thing. So you will give the room for me, and you will go for your work. I used to browse all the journals, and I used to download the content for my research work. I always recall that whenever I speak or talk about Kumar Raja Singh, I used to think about the support he have offered to the teachers. It's greenish in my mind.
Thank you so much, sir. In fact, I'm glad that I could get an opportunity to serve my teacher who has taught me. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah, and I value it.
It's pleasant days, so interacting with you. A couple of days before, we had a webinar with Chaladurai, one of your classmates.
Yes.
He has also extended a webinar on Saturday. It was a nice talk, and we are really glad to have a webinar series for the benefit of our students, faculty members, and others. To start formally, I once again welcome Dr. G. Kumar Raja Singh, Senior Manager, Analytics and Insights, TCS Bangalore. Welcome you, Dr. Kumar Raja Singh.
Thank
I
you, sir.
am happy to welcome you. When I see your qualifications, you have started your education career with the SREC, and you have completed your BE Mechanical Engineering in the year 1999 with a good percentage. After that, you have done your master's in KCT, and you have done industrial engineering. After that, you have completed your PhD in IIT Chennai. You got about 8.5 CGP out of 10. I know that how sincere and how involvement you have extended during your PhD work. You have done a lot of things. You learned a lot. You have done your PhD in operational research. I can see that. After that, when I see your professional career, you became a specialized one. You have not taken whatever on the way in your career, but you have chosen that you have to become an expert in the particular domain. That I can see that. Now we are very happy and proud that you became one of the experts in the AI and ML and data science analytics skill sets. A person with a lot of skills in that. Really, you have traveled in a particular specialization and you become expert in that. So you have a lot of analytical skill sets like prescriptive and predictive modeling using data analytics, data mining, machine learning techniques. You can make use of that for forecasting, developing a regression model, and so many things you have mentioned about your capabilities. And formulating mathematical models using linear, integer, and mixed integer programming. Normally, we feel difficult in mathematics, but you have traveled along with the mathematics. It's a really good thing. Because of that, only you become expert in the data analytics. And in the data science, statistics, operational research, you have expertise in a lot of tools, OR simulation tools, script language, statistics software, visualization tools like that. And you are a certified Scrum Master from Scrum Alliance. You are a internal quality auditor for the Caterpillar Logistics like that. you have a very good experience. To talk about your industrial experience, now you are in a senior manager, the supply chain and manufacturing analytics in Tata Consultancy Services. You are there right from Jan 19 onwards. I can remember that you have communicated about your shifting of your company to Tata from the Caterpillar. Really, you have communicated about your progress. Really happy to have such kind of relationship with you. Then, before starting your career at Tata Consultancy, you have a very good experience for about 7 years in Caterpillar India. Again, you were there as a senior information scientist. Before that, you had some 2.5 years of experience as a business analyst in the CSS Corporation Private Limited. That is why I told you have traveled in a particular way to become an expertise in a particular domain.
Right. Thank you,
So before going to the industries, you were in teaching line for about 1.8 years in the Sardinia University. So I hope that this teaching experience really helped you a lot while progressing in your career.
Sure.
With this background, it's a very happy moment to have you with us online to talk about how the data analytics is very much useful for the mechanical engineers. I am equally happy to welcome the faculty members of our department and student members of our department and others who are interested to listen at you. I am welcoming every one of you. Before concluding the welcome address, to talk about our college, Sri Ramakrishna Engineering College was established in the year 1994 by Yasuna Charitable Trust, and we have successfully completed more than 26 years. Our college is very, very consistent in performance. We stand at about 140 in the NIRF ranking. That means our college stands at 140 position. This year it is 142. So we are consistently performing and we are maintaining one of the top 150 colleges in India. It's really proud for us. That means we are entering into the spectrum of different activities. That is why we are able to sustain our position within 150 top institution in India. And to introduce about our department. Department is as old as the institution, started in the inception of the institution. 36 faculty members are working in our department. Out of that, 11 members are holding PhDs. Department is having a rich experience in undertaking the sponsored research projects. We have received funds close to 2 crores from different agencies, DST, UGC, AICT. We have received funds for undertaking the research activities. With this background, once again, I am welcoming every one of you. Now I request Dr. Kumar Arjun Singh to take over the session. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Karupasamy sir. And I'm very glad to be part of this bigger community. And once again, a good morning to all of you. And I'm happy that we have a host of faculty members. And also, like, I'm able to see Suresh Kumar sir, the one who has taught me. I think Suresh Kumar sir is in line as well, I believe. So I'm so glad that I'm able to join this morning. And I really wanted to thank you students for joining, because every moment when you join this kind of session, you might have certain takeaways. So maybe you may run through about 30 to 45 minutes or maybe an hour or so. But what you would do is at the end of the day, you may pick up some certain, important, points that would be helpful for you as you go along. So I just wanted to structure this presentation a little interactive possible. And as I kind of run through with your, high-level understanding about syllabus, I think students, you have data science as a subject to learn and so on and so forth. So I don't want to spend much time on the technical aspect of it, because if you wanted to run through various methodologies and so on and so forth, that's going to be a different orientation and plan altogether. But the whole idea of presenting is this: how data analytics is being looked at it from the industry standpoint and focusing on what is that mechanical engineers can contribute and involved in this. So that's the whole idea of having this presentation. I have about 13 to 14 slides that I have around. Just wanted to give you a perspective, and I'll just run through with maybe a couple of slides, maybe a little elementary, when I say for you to remember your fundamentals, and then I would like to specifically put across what is that expected out of industry from students like you. So that's the whole outline or a setup of the presentation that I'm going to run through with. Okay, let me share my PPT. Let me know, are you able to see my screen? Is my screen visible?
Can you move the next slide, please, so that I can understand? Now the screen appears to be a blank.
Okay.
Senthil Kannan, can you see the slide?
No, sir, it's dark.
It's dark. Okay, maybe there is a latency issue. Maybe let me stop sharing and then share it again. In spite of all technologies in place, but still, sometimes we have difficulty in, right? How is it right now, Senthil?
Now it is visible.
Sure. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Thank you so much. I think at this outset, I wanted to thank Professor Senthil Kannan for arranging the session. I'm very happy that all the interaction that I had thus far, it's phenomenal. And let's move on to this presentation. So basically, when you talk about the first slide, data analytics, a perspective. I think friends and students, I just wanted to run through certain aspects of it, because at the end of the day, learning tools, understanding technologies, methodology would eventually fall in place. If I could give you a particular problem to work on, maybe a week or two, you'll finish and come back. So that's something is not a big issue. But I wanted to put forth the perspective of how the data analytics is being looked at it. And then what is that is expected out of the organization. Okay, if you look at it, the slide which is on the left of mine, it is from the Gartner research that talks about, if you look at data analytics at large, it is being categorized into 4 broader buckets. Okay, when I talk about these buckets, I also wanted to put forth what is that expectation that industry has, so that we have a kind of a theoretical understanding as well as what is expected from the industry. If you look at it, this particular graph, wherein the data analytics is broadly classified into 4. One is descriptive analytics, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. Okay, so if anyone wants to start a data science career, being a mechanical engineer, probably would start with this first block, the first step of the career, where we might be comfortable with the descriptive statistics, diagnostic, predictive, and then you move on to the higher level where it's going to be optimization. So if you look at the level of difficulty as you progress towards the higher platform, you would find the difficulty is going up. And then obviously the value that you add into the organization, industry, is going to be tremendous. Okay, if you look at it, descriptive statistics, we have been talking about this from the ancient. I would say it is an old wine in a new bottle, right? We have statistics. We talk about mean, mode, median. Now, all this basic statistics, the number crunching would typically fall under this category called descriptive statistics. What we are trying to do is, if any data is given, for example, if I'm giving you a data of the failure of a particular machine or the behavior of a machine over a period of time, maybe if you talk about pressure, temperature, or feed, speed, depth of cut. Let's say you have a host of parameters that I have in which I pull out from a, let's say, CNC machine. If I give the data to you as a data scientist, if you're able to slice and dice the data and say that in this particular angle, this machine performs well because of the speed, or the roughness or the surface finish of the part is becoming poor because of you have given overfeeding, or depth of cut. So anything that you're able to slice and dice and get the perspective out of the data, what I give it to you as an industry guy, If you're able to bring that out, that is going to be a descriptive statistics. Okay, and the second one is diagnostic. Okay, after I kind of slice and dice the data from different angles, why did it happen? You kind of put forth the question, what could be the possible reason that this particular parameter, this particular output has not come the way you expected out of it? So you kind of put forth a critical question around and understand the light of the descriptive statistics is going to be a diagnostic analytics. Okay, so you start with the descriptive, you slice and dice data in various ways. I'll kind of touch upon how you do it as we go along. And then you start asking, what could be the reason? Why did that happen? That critical, business questions for which you try to give an answer in a statistical way that will fall under diagnostic statistics. And the third piece is something that has come, I would say, very recently. But before that, if you could see the fourth block, the prescriptive, it is there everywhere. We talk about optimization, you talk about finite analysis, or you talk about studying of failure of machines, or you talk about tribology. So whenever you look at a rigorous optimization piece concept involved in, that's when the prescriptive analytics come into play. In my opinion, a lot of work has already been done from 1940 to 43, where the OR has fallen in place. And not only OR, you talk about thermodynamics, you talk about heat and mass transfer, across every science and technology, where a lot of work has gone ahead in the prescriptive. Okay, that is there already. It is not something new that we are talking about. It is again the old wine in a new bottle. Coming to this particular piece is called predictive analytics, has taken a lot of leaps and bounds just because the technology has grown up. And I talk about technology has grown up. I would just give you a classical example. If you wanted to install a solar plant or a solar water heater, you can just go ahead and put your solar panel and then get the hot water out. But if you wanted to store up that energy, what you need to have is that I need to have a big fuel cell. Maybe I would say I want to have a sophisticated or maybe a high-end fuel cell or a battery that is required to suck enormous energy and pump into the battery, so that the battery can hold enormous power that is required for. So then second one is going to be the size of the solar panel. The larger the size of the solar panel, better the absorption, the conduction, right? Convection, all these three things will fall in place so that you pull things into it. So the size of the panel, I'm just putting it across, was bigger, but now becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And now you see there are cars, where they put the solar panel right above the roof, and they do the painting around. So that technology has brought to a point where you're able to consume that energy, solar energy, with a small square feet or square inch of area. Okay, and the second one is the way the technology has grown up, where you can store up enormous energy, through a small battery, right? So that's how you would find that things are really exploding and enlarging. Now, coming back to this predictive analytics, there were times where if you wanted to store up a data, which is data is coming from your CNC machine, or it could be coming from your some other automation, where it is difficult for us to store up the data. But then now you can store as many data that you can. So that is the precise reason where you would find over here the predictive analytics has taken a lot of momentum, a lot of attraction when it comes to engineers and it comes to mechanical engineers. Okay, so having said this, I would want you guys to kind of appreciate the way that progression has happened, and then like how a mechanical engineer can play a critical role into all these pieces. That's something that we will talk as we go along. So in a nutshell, if you want to be a part of a data science team, being a mechanical engineer, you've got to start from the descriptive statistics and move on to diagnostic. And predictive is a place where a lot of things are happening around. You can catch up with that. And prescriptive, in my opinion, you guys have got a decent understanding about it. If you're able to hone your skills, you're able to move ahead with. Okay, so having said this, this is what I was just talking about, data explosion. You talk about mainframe era in 1950s and 60s, where the mainframes have fallen in place. And even you see like the launch of Apollo and all these things happen 1967, 70. So you could see that the mainframes and mini eras just started, where the information that typically that comes out from any system is more of a transactional data. As we progress towards the era of PC, I would say in 1975 to 80 timeframe, where slowly the PC has started falling in place, and IBM started putting a lot of momentum into it, and then they started coming up with a lot of machines and so on and so forth. As you progress in, I still remember in 1998, where when I was doing a project in SREC, I remember Dr. Karthikeyan sir, he was a research project supervisor. I remember I was talking to him, I said, sir, I need some data, which I really don't know from where I take it from. Then I remember, that time we had computers, as Anna was saying, we had computer, and then he went out and pulled out a lot of data and printed and gave it to us. That's when I understand, oh, come on, in 1998, where I see internet had enabled a lot, where lots of questions have been answered by pulling those data from systems. So thanks to Karthikeyan sir, who helped me out. So that internet era started up, as you guys are all aware, that 1995, and then slowly at 2000, it has just increased. So cut the long story short, where what I was trying to mean over here is the data explosion is enormous as you move along in 2020, where internet of things and then whatnot, everything has actually made you available, made you to have data in hand. Okay, so what I was trying to drive from this slide is this, that people cannot while away, people cannot slip away from the data and say, I don't want data. Now, what is that in store for mechanical engineers? So as a mechanical engineer, we day in day involved in designing of machines, or you would do a product development, or you might be a production engineer in the shop floor, or you may be an R&D, wherever you go, where the data is going to be part and parcel of your life and my life. And then that's when that people say that you, as a mechanical engineer, you should have certain core skills. If you're a thermal thermal engineer, then you need to have all the concepts in. That is really bread and butter for you. But on top of it, they will ask you, do you have any idea about data science? Can you do a small analysis on this data and give you insights out of it? So what I was trying to say is, we being a mechanical engineer, the fundamentals, the core principles are the same, that we cannot while away with or put away with. But on top of it, because the data is coming up in everywhere, flooding all over like a sea, that the understanding of data science and also dirtying your hands is very essential. Maybe probably if you want to be a full-fledged data engineer, okay, data scientist, probably you dirty your hands, you bury your hands more into the data, and then you kind of learn things around. But if you want to say, I don't want to be a data scientist, but I want to be at least a specialist, like a functional consultant, then still the industry demands you to talk about data. So I really wanted to appreciate you, friends, that you have to focus on how I'll be able to pick up those learnings from the data science. That is very critical. So I skipped this for interest of time, where you have, I talked about volume of data comes in, you talk about real-time data, or you talk about near real-time or streaming data, or batch way the data comes in. So data just flooding in, and variety of data has just taken a lot of stuff, right? Lot of leap. You talk about structured data, where you put the data in tables, columns, and rows and columns. That's where you find data comes from ERP systems. You talk about SAP, or you talk about your whatever the ERP system that are there in the manufacturing setting, where you would find the variety is in a structured way. Now things have gone to a point where you have data in every form. Talk about emails, you talk about your videos, audios, you talk about social media content. So there are a lot of data which has become variety has increased tremendously, where we have to do something with that. And Velocity talked about, right, streaming, real-time streaming or near real-time streaming, so on and so forth. Okay, so the last one is this: data is a new oil. I would say that if you want to burn your oil, if you want to burn your lamp, you need an oil, right? So for us as data mechanical engineers who are actually adapting data science, we got to know about data. We should understand the data. That's what I wanted to drive from this particular slide, is that the data is everywhere. We should have an understanding about data, how data looks like, what can I do with the data. That mindset is really required for all 65 people in a batch. If there are 65 or 60 engineers who are there in this in the final year, I would say that you need to give some thought and perspective towards this, so that you'll be able to do a good job. Okay, having said this, I'll move on to the next slide. Just 1 minute. Sorry. I think. Okay. So second slide is that typically we talk about friends. You talk about neural networks. You talk about AI in artificial intelligence, where people talk about neural networks. Neural networks found to be one of the best thing that people use it. But then you could see the neural network has started in 1950 and 70s. just look at this. The first artificial neural network was invented in 1958. And then, where they were trying to know what they're trying to do, to model how human brain processes visual data, and so on and so forth. So this all the fundamentals have started in way back 1950. As time go by, 1980s and 2010, where machine learning has fallen in place, and then now we talk about deep learning, and then so on and so forth. Okay, so what is it all about? Just look at this picture, quite interesting. When you train your deep learning model, let's say a sophisticated model, you just talk about just what the sophistication, let's not worry about it. You train a model and say all men are mortal. Okay, and then you say Socrates is a man, and therefore Socrates is mortal. So all about how best you would connect those dots of your business rules, how you connect the dots of your technology would enable you to do a proper prediction, is what this all about machine learning is about. And then the previous, the before one is also quite interesting. You can just run through and understand whatever you put into this, you will get out. If it's not happening, then you start running. What I was trying to say is, in those days, I remember, we had an old car. It was in 1958 model. So where, when the battery is not there, we have to crank it. We have a big rod which we crank it over and over again and again, and then the vehicle starts. So that's how sometimes when battery goes on, we run it. So typically in data science, all about you try to put some data into it and then do a lot of massaging, and then you do a statistical analysis and get the results out. And then you see if the result is not good, what you're going to do is go back and you fine tune the data. If you're able to do that iteratively, and you would find there's a point where your results seems to be related to your industry expectation, then you stop your modeling. That's all about the machine learning. It's all about the data science. Okay, so then having said this, I'll move to the next slide. Maybe at the end of the presentation, probably I would like to have some couple of questions to hear from. Okay, so now we just kind of talked about basics. At the same time, I also explained to you what is the industry. Industry is expecting that people can be either in descriptive, diagnostic, or predictive or prescriptive. You can place yourself into where you want to be. Even descriptive statistics, a lot of work is happening. You talk about slicing and dicing data, a lot of visualization now work is happening around. And across the globe, people looking for data visualization engineer. What I was trying to say is, you still can be a part of your core area as a mechanical engineer. You can be a production engineer, or you can be a supervisor, or it could be a design engineer, but still you can do a lot of work on data science. If you're able to learn about Tableau, and you call Power BI, or the couple of visualization tools that you learn, still you can make your job as a second skill as a data visualization in your career. Okay, so having said this, friends, I just want you to have a look at, I don't know how many of you get an opportunity to look at this. Harvard Business Review in 2012, I'm talking about 8 years ago, they have done a wonderful prediction analysis and said that the data science is going to be the very attractive job in 21st century. So I remember when I was trying to getting into this data science way back, I was just thinking, okay, data science is going to come along the way. Let me try to put one of my foot into data science. That's how I've kind of moved my career consciously, as Professor Karupasamy Sir was mentioning, that 10 years ago, I thought data science is going to make some sense. I put a little bit of feet into it. Now I'm actually in the middle of the sea, where I'm in the data science field. So the prediction has come into reality. Okay, and then it's not going to stop over here, in my opinion, with all my observation that data science is not going to stop. It will keep moving forward as we go along. So if you look at this information, this box, quite interesting to show over here. Machine learning is the automotive industry. Machine learning in the automotive industry is predicted to grow by 50% in 2025. We are not talking about IT. We are not talking about financial domain. We are not talking about any other thing. You talk about automotive industry itself. You appreciate now many things have fallen in place. So if you wanted to have a career being a mechanical engineer, at the same time, if you're able to put your feet into data science to some extent, you can definitely take an advantage out of it. It's what I wanted to drive from this slide. That still you can have your core area. Still you can ensure that your all your skills are being used. But if you could put your little bit of thought towards data science, it'll do a job for you. Now, having said this, I just wanted to give a couple of minutes over here to tell you, like, data science looks very bigger, but then you can place, any one of those circles. You can see the circles around, right? So basically, you talk about data science, people interchangeably use the word data analytics, data science. What is all about? You can see this now. This picture is known to you. You can see in the Google, but I wanted to really wanted to give you an idea. See, the artificial intelligence is the bigger circle, where machine learning is a subset of it, and deep learning is just much more drilled down. It's like, this is like a pond, this is like a borewell. And then data science is just cutting across all AI, machine learning, and deep learning. Okay, so what is data science? If you look at data science, you need to have an understanding about mathematics and statistics. Dear mechanical engineers, you learn statistics, mathematics, but if you're able to give a little more thought to your fundamentals on mathematics and statistics, and then this computer science is very important. I just wanted to really to put across this morning is this, that if you want to be a part of a data science team, you have to ensure that you are comfortable with computer science. I remember in 1997, 98, we had programming in C was a subject. It was found to be very difficult for me. And not only for me, I think most of my classmates, I think Sendil also would agree upon. It was very difficult. But then now this computer science or programming is going to be part and parcel of your career if you want to take a data science as your career. So computer science is really needed if you have to have a inclination towards programming. But friends, I tell you, those days when you want to do a programming of a particular problem, probably you may run around thousands and 2,000 lines of codes you have to write down. But now, as things have really advanced, where instead of writing 2,000 lines of code in, let's say, C++, I talk about from the data science perspective, you'd finish your entire coding in, let's say, 200, 300 lines of the program in 200, 300 lines of code. What I was trying to say is, the programming has become much elegant. The programming is become much comfortable, where you know to break your head. As long as you're able to have that intuition, as long as you're able to understand the concept, in my opinion, mechanical engineers can do wonders in programming. Because data science talks about programming. And this, I need not talk about it. Your domain knowledge will take you in. So data science is something that, any mechanical engineer can pick up and move forward with. Okay, so having said this, there is always a taboo that comes in the mind of mechanical engineers. Hey, I'm good at mathematics, or I'm good at logic, or I'm able to understand the reality that's happening on the shop floor, but I'm not good at computer science. I'm not good at IT. No, in my opinion, that mechanical engineers have got a different skills altogether. I'm not undermining other engineering students, but mechanical engineers have got that knack of getting things done. I've seen it over the years. And I've seen my, seniors and, even forefathers, where all the mechanical engineers are smart in getting things done. I don't know why it is, but I think the way that we are, drilled in the college, I do not know. But the point is, mechanical engineers can pick up things much faster. So that's all I wanted to mention over here. Machine learning, where it's just simple, right? So you have an algorithm. There is a human intervention right over here. You sit and then try to see which are all the important variables in, I say, futures. I say variables are nothing but future input variables, which are going to add value to your prediction. So that future extraction is an important piece that is done in machine learning. But the deep learning, where this future extraction, identifying the right variables which will contribute to your output for the prediction of car or not car in this case, that heavy lifting is done through algorithms and so on and so forth by a human. But when it comes to deep learning, to a large extent, you kind of bury this feature extraction as a part of your deep learning. Is going to be your algorithm is going to be deep learning. Okay, and artificial intelligence is something that friends, I would say the combination of data science, machine learning, and deep learning. Okay, if you want to be a robotic engineer, right? Because many of them wanted to be a robotic engineer. If you want to be a robotic engineer, so you need to really to have this three piece in hand. Yeah, you have the very, the dynamics of the movement of forces and stress and strain are going to be part of your designing of your the physical element or the connectivity of the element when I talk about. But how the things are happening within the system, how you connect with control systems and your processor and whatnot, all these things definitely would ask you to have this data science area. If somebody wants to pick up a robotic engineering as you're learning, you got to get into data science. If you say, I don't want data science, probably we cannot be so successful. That's what I wanted to put across over here. I have some couple of slides run through, and then I wanted to hear some questions from you. Okay, I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes over here because what is it that the industry is demanding from a data scientist or from a data engineer? And I wanted to connect how a mechanical engineer can play a vital role over here. If you look at this left side picture where you have a data engineer, you have data scientist. Who's a data engineer? In my opinion, if somebody who's done a computer science degree where they talk about data structure, they talk about database, they talk about cloud, they talk about quite a lot of things. What is that is all about? How well you'll be able to pull the data from different sources of any system. It could be a mechanical system or it could be electrical system, electronic system. What are the system that you have? How efficiently able to connect your data sources and pull the data and store it up in a more efficient way so that this data and data science community can take advantage out of it. So that is the key that's the key activity is what the data science engineers are doing it. And I have seen there are many mechanical engineers who are still in data engineering. They have shifted their career from mechanical engineering and they focused more towards on the computer science and they do a pretty good job in this space. Okay, but then in my opinion, being a mechanical engineer, in my opinion, you can concentrate more on data science. Okay, you can have you can have a little bit of understanding about this piece of it, but then if you put more involvement understanding on this side of it, you can do wonders. Okay, this is an interesting piece. I picked it up from Google, where if you want to be a data scientist in the area of mechanical engineering, and a couple of slides I'll connect with you with certain use cases to talk about. If you want to be a data scientist in mechanical engineering, these are all some of the tools and techniques that you need to comfortable with. You talk about SAS as a programming, and pandas is the thing, but it comes in Python. I talked about Tableau as visualization, just to give you. And if you're good at MATLAB, still you can do data science in MATLAB. And you talk about Gephi's visualization. So SPSS and R. And right now, the new technology, the Python that you see over here, helps most of the problem and helping people to solve most of the problems through the technology. So if you wanted to be a data scientist, which industry is demanding, is that you need to have a couple of programming skills, let's say Python and R or SAS and SPSS. Apart from that, if you have the data visualization skill and also mathematics, you can definitely you can try in this particular space. Yeah, data engineering, if somebody wants to try, you have to get into this all the databases, connectivity, and so on and so forth. Okay, so having said this, I'll take another 10 minutes time and I close my presentation. If there are any specific question, I want to take it up forward with. Okay, now this is the kind of a lot of statistics available in the Google, but if you look at it from Analytics India magazine 2008, it's a 2 years old data, but still it says percentage of analytic jobs by industry in India. You talk about it, the majority of expectation is from the BTech, and when you talk about BTech as engineering graduate, right? Any graduate degree is less. If you're an engineer, there are more opportunities. When I say relatively, there are more opportunities. So you can be one among them. You can tap this particular bar, which you might be helpful for you. Now, the projection of data science and analytics we talk about. We see the manufacturing. We think manufacturing looks still old. No, manufacturing still is looking for opportunity to optimize their resources and then maximize their productivity. So if you say manufacturing is also a pretty significant portion of it, maybe professional services combination of many things, but then you can see that this graph is actually giving you some sort of an understanding that there are need in the area of mechanical engineers, in the area of mechanical engineering. Okay, and I just kind of slip this for a moment. Mechanical engineering nutshell. You talk about understanding of materials. We had subject called MOM. We had design of machine ML. So you talk about any study on materials. Still a lot of work is happening in data science in this space, and studying of machines, and still data science happening around. And there's another interesting point in the study of fluids. I remember fluid mechanics subject. That's right. So a lot of work is happening on fluid mechanics as well, but they look for a mechanical engineer who can contribute on it. And then the mathematical understanding is definitely need of the hour. Coming to the industrial engineering, NSA mechanical, it can be it can be thermal engineering, it can be a tribology, it could be a production, or it could be a automobile engineering. All these things would fall into mechanical engineering. Coming to the industrial engineering, why I put separately over here is that because at the end of the day, the production has to happen. And to have the production where they wanted to ensure that the understanding of supply chain is needed. And then if you're able, if being a mechanical engineer, if you're able to contribute on the supply chain side of it, you can do a lot of wonders and you can earn money, a lot of money as well. Ergonomics is something that, another part of it where IT is looking for ergonomics, the sitting posture and then how long they can sit on a computer and so on and so on. A lot of need is happening on the ergonomic side as well. If somebody is interested in ergonomics, you can pursue your career on data science and ergonomics, and then you keep moving on, so on and so forth. Right, and this is the piece that I really wanted to, friends, that you want to have a look at it. In 1974, the revolution started where Industry 1.0 was where that mechanical production equipments are driven by water and source. Basically, they're trying to ensure that how the source power can be utilized so that mechanical systems can be driven. And then 1870, where you would find the electrical energy has fallen in place, where the automation and all those things have fallen in place. 1969, where automation, we talk about CAD, and we talk about SIM, computer-aided manufacturing, and all this stuff have kind of started up in 1970. But this is where this community of students are seated over here, where the advancement of this is going to be Industry 4.0. I would recommend you guys to browse through and understand what is 4.0. It's all about connecting the machines. You talk about physical machines which are connected. Machines are talking to each other. A CNC machine talks to a robot. A robot talks to a remote system and the other geography and so on and so forth. So there are tremendous work is happening on Industry 4.0 where mechanical engineers are needed. Everywhere, wherever you go, the production happens. Right, be it you have an IT, you have electronics, communication, and all those things. But at the end of the day, somebody has to produce, right? The production has to happen, and then the production, wherever the production happens, the mechanical engineer has to fall in place. And then, as I said, the data is exploding so much that you can take a lot of advantage out of it. I remember there are times where I remember when we were doing our lathe workshop, a special purpose machine, an SPM lab, wherein we have to do a centering of a stock in the lathes, and then now you would ensure that the center has is equivalent to the coinciding with your chuck and so on and so forth. That's how we started up. Now everything become automated. Yes, yeah, we talk about CNC. It's about 20 years ago. Still we have CNC. Now things are changing, where mechanical engineers are asked to do programming. Right, friends, you appreciate, right? You have to build your manufacturing process through programming. Right, so that's what's happening around. I think one of the friends have asked about fluid mechanics. I'll just pick up one use case and then I'll finish that out. Thanks for asking, Dinesh. So the production engineering needs mechanical engineers, and mechanical engineers has to have a understanding about data, how you would able to bring meaningful insight out of it. Okay, and this is about some of the applications. I just quickly run through it and then 2 more slides and I'll pick up the case study and I finish it off. Okay. See, when you look at this, what we call application data science, aerospace engineering, you look at it 20 terabyte of data per flight of flying. Now, there were times where flying in an aircraft was luxury, right? I'm talking about in Indian context. And then now people are just flying left and right. And the aviation industry has taken tremendous, progress, wherein they need mechanical engineers to work on. Yes, in fact, mechatronics engineers, who also involved in. But the point over here is wherever there are mechanical system, wherever there is a friction, wherever there is a connectivity, interaction happens around, there is a mechanical things fall in place. So you could look at the wide variety of problem can be done. Whatever I picked up over here, you being a mechanical engineer can contribute into it. Talk about price optimization, the sense now how much of price that I should keep on the seat which is in the first 2 rows in the aircraft, how much of price that I can put it in the middle of the row and the end of the flight. So there are a lot of price optimizations happening around, and aircraft maintenance. There's one called, I think it's called remaining useful life modeling. In the sense, aircraft has got thousands of components, and then really wanted to see a particular component which is sitting deep inside the propeller, and you want really to know whether the particular part is working as per the expected performance or not. So wherein we cannot open up that particular part, as you all understand, right? So there are thousands of sensors have been put across in the aircraft, literally thousands of sensors, which we cannot see from outside, thousands of sensors across. All the sensors bring in data, and the data is talking about what? All your dynamics, aerodynamics, your profile of your aircraft, or whatnot. So everything would need your skills. So that's what I picked up a lot of stuff over here. Fuel efficiency optimization, that needs a mechanical engineer who can work on it. So the whole lot of opportunities there in aerospace engineering, you being a mechanical engineer. Coming to this production and manufacturing, you talk about demand forecasting. For example, if X company says that the demand of my car, the luxury car is going to be 2,580 cars in a year. But if the forecasting is taken for a task, you end up in producing more cars, and at the end of the day, you would find that nobody is buying a car. So you might find the production forecasting of your demand, forecasting of your sales, and also I'll appreciate the forecasting of how many spare parts that you keep in your warehouse is very important. After you produce a machine, the machine or your car goes into the market, but then if you don't have enough spare parts, service parts in your manufacturing facility, you're gone. Right? So there are quite a lot of problems that being mechanical engineers can contribute in the area of data science. Talk about inventory optimization, manufacturing scheduling. Scheduling is a very old story. Right? We talk about scheduling 10 workers to 5 machines. It's just typical, a classical scheduling problem. But now things have moved to a point where intelligent scheduling happening around. Who can do the intelligent scheduling? You and I, who are mechanical engineers who got the learning, can do wonders. Friends, I want to add you one more thing over here. It's not scheduling of your only on automobile engineering. You talk about semiconductor manufacturing companies. You talk about Intel. You talk about Qualcomm. So all this, high-tech industries are producing their components, producing their products where they need mechanical engineers. Mechanical engineers with have an understanding about a little bit of the chip design and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, production has to happen. Right? So in my opinion, you being a data scientist, you can pick up any one of those areas. Okay. And then quickly to finish off, and the retail again, what is that I'm going to do with retail? No, it's not the case. Retail has got a lot of skills, a lot of needs. Customer behavior, probably you have studied your industrial management, industrial engineering management, where customer behavior you can predict out. If you have a little bit of inclination towards industrial engineering, you can do a whole lot of things in this space. Talk about retail, Reliance Retail, you talk about Walmart. Even at this pandemic situation, I heard about Walmart is recruiting people. What does it mean? That means still they have a lot of need. Amazon looks for smart people like you. If somebody who could get that grip of it, I would tell you, Amazon can give you a good job, but there are thousands of engineers waiting. But then if you're able to hone your skills, you can do wonders. So in the retail space as well, being a mechanical engineers, we can do wonders. Okay, and I have a couple of slides, and then I'll finish and then take up questions. Okay, I think it's time now. It's around 2 o'clock. It's going to be 12 o'clock. Okay, I just want to touch upon one quick case study for you friends to appreciate all these things. What you looked at previously are the opportunities for you to have. This is an interesting piece. I wanted to give you a glimpse of it. I think there's a company called Westtrac. Westtrac is the top dealer of Caterpillar. Caterpillar is one of the biggest mining construction equipment manufacturer in the world. And I worked with Caterpillar for about close to 8 years in the area of data science, wherein this is actually a paper, a research paper that was implemented into the industry, wherein look at these machines. These machines are very huge. I remember the biggest machine, I just want to add you on, it's a small one. The biggest machine where I went US once, where I saw that there was one, they made one wonderful auditorium with this machine. Close around 50 people can sit inside. Such a huge machine. So these machines are being placed in the remote location where the health of the machine plays a key role. Right? And that's when you can see this data science plays a key role. In the sense they constantly monitor the health of the machine. And you talk about engine, what you talk about your all parameters of the engine is being monitored through various systems. Okay, this Westtrac is a dealer who got a dedicated department called Equipment Maintenance Center Department, where they have about thousands of machines under their purview. When I talk about thousands of machines, Caterpillar sells thousands of machines across the globe, and the Westtrac has got connectivity with those customers. And then they say to the customer saying that, okay, we will take care of your 3 machines. I just give you an idea. if one machine costs around 5 to 6 crores of rupee, just imagine this one machine costs around 5 to 6 crores. Some of them is going to be 3 to 4. This can be around 4 to 5. It depends on the capacity. So if a dealer says that no, he's going to the customer and say, I take care of 10 of your machines, it's close to around how much? 4 into 10 is a 40 crores of machine which are right on the field. What they're trying to do, they want to do a prognostic analysis where they use the oil, which is critical in running the machines, especially the engines, which are actually internal combustion engines, where they pick up the oil and they do a lot of statistical analysis. That is what we call it as schedule oil sample on a periodical basis, where they pick up the oil and then they start studying the dynamics, the element involved in the soil. Typically, we talk about oil has got a lot of property, right? I remember somebody asked about question fluid dynamics, right? Fluid mechanics. Now we did study on flash point, fire point. Remember, like, there are times I remember my oil got burnt. Suddenly I got afraid what's happening around. So a lot of parameters involved in that actually directly influencing your performance of your engine. So this particular case study talks about taking the oil sample on a periodical basis from the engine, and they were trying to do a predictive modeling. So that is what it called as remaining useful life. What we're trying to do is, by taking the oil, you talk about viscosity, you talk about various content of that oil, and then as machines moving, you would find like iron, you find Na, sodium, and so on. Many chemicals are being, is coming out from that, and then oil become inefficient. So, or maybe the property goes down. So, just I want to give you appreciation to this model where they take out the oil and they do statistical analysis, and they'll try to say that, hey, you know what? According to your spec, manufacturing spec, this particular pump may run for about 600 hours according to the spec. Okay, and you think that your oil change for your oil pump can happen at the end of 6,000 hours, but then the predictive modeling would tell you with a real kind situation, because each of the machines are different location geographically. Here you see this machine is in a completely different environment, or maybe the same machine is being used in a Arctic, let's say Arctic based regions, so the conditions are different. So because of that, each of those components would undergo different kinds of stress and strain, different kinds of behavior altogether. So this the predictive analytics, the remaining useful life modeling that Caterpillar has done it out, wherein it says that, hey, you know what, you say 6,000 hours, hours at which you have to replace your machine or replace the oil or maybe do a repair, but then according to the statistics and modeling, they say you got to change your oil in 4,300 kilometers. Friends, this description, this precise prediction is done by the data science. Now I would want to ask you, who would do this activity? It is a data mechanical engineer. An engineer who has got a data science background can do wonders. Okay, with the interest of time, I just skip through, and then I would just wanted to pick up some questions from you. So this is about example of fluid mechanics, right? We were in impression that no, somebody goes and checks. No, they pull all the data to do other analysis, but when it comes to engine, they go and typically they pick up the sample and they do analysis. Okay, look at this. I just wanted to pick up this and I just open for a discussion. Look at this. You have a sodium, you have a ferrous, you have iron, you have they call it soot. You talk about viscosity, if a temperature at 40 degrees centigrade, and then how your viscosity looks like, and then you have another index. So what they're trying to do is that there are about close to 30 variables, I would say variants, which contributes on the viscosity or contributes on the quality of your oil. And then they deduce it to a point where 30 variables not required. Then they went on to a point where 12 variables are enough. And there's a point where further analysis enables them to drill down to a point where these are the 5 critical variables which will influence on the quality of your oil. Okay, that's what is happening around. I think this is one model called cost proportion hazard model. There are many models that are there in predicting the remaining useful life. You talk about similarity based model, you talk about quite a lot of other models are in place, wherein like this, they picked up this particular model called cost proportion hazard model. When you have time, you can go back and understand. So they identifying the right modeling is something that it is coming from our skills. Mechanical engineers can only understand what is the dynamics involved in, and then you can pick up the right model. So I want to explain this particular 2 graph and stop for a question or questions. Look at this. This is nothing but, I talked about remaining useful life. This is a curve to make things simple. This is a curve that you have. The center curve is come through the statistics analysis, wherein like if you are going to run your machine
at oil level of 8,000, if you draw a line, perpendicular line over here, and you put an horizontal line over here, what is the probability that no, your survival is going to be 55%? Right? If you run your machine for 12,000, the survival level is going to be much, conservative. Right? So this is how data science helps out, helping the engineers who are sitting on the field can take a decision on. How is it helpful to us? If they're able to predict that a particular part is going to likely to fail in another 40, let's say 40% of total time, then what happens is the machine is sitting at the remote. I'm giving an example. It's about thousands of kilometers away or hundreds of kilometers away. They need to ensure that the particular part or a particular component needs to be available right on the field. Correct. I cannot take the backhoe loader. I cannot take the OHT off-highway truck, the big one, that I can't drive it to the workshop. So wherein the material part has to go in place time. But then you know what? Every hour of downtime is going to cost billions of rupees. Not billions. I'm sorry, millions of rupees. Or at least lot of money is being wasted because of downtime. So what we're trying to do is these kinds of predictive modeling helps to the people to be more proactive to ensure that the replacement of the part is happening, or oil is being changed, or that chains are being tightened, whatnot. All those maintenance activities are being done, or if they're able to bring in those parts a little bit earlier, because of that they're able to improve upon their downtime. Finally, I close over here. See, this is an interesting piece, but now as per the analysis, they understand that iron plays a key role, and they bring in the iron as a content. They're trying to bring into a deeper analysis wherein the curve changes drastically. So such kinds of analysis, because of that, the curve changes, because of that, the survival probability changes drastically. What you expect over here is more, it is going to be lesser. Okay, so I think in a nutshell, what I would like to put across over here is this, friends, that data science is going to be part and parcel of any mechanical engineer. Maybe you might be able to use it in proportion, but you have to have it. If somebody wants to swim, you have to jump into the water and you know how to swim. So in my opinion, being a mechanical engineer and this engineer, I see that data science is going to be a future and part and parcel of your life. Continue to have your skills in the place where you want to be. You can do that, but at the same time, if you're able to have your foot on data science, it will take you to a longer run. Okay, so having said this, I would like to pick up some couple of questions which I can be of help for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar Raja Singh. You have given a wonderful presentation about data analytics for the mechanical engineers. Really, it's worth, and we have enjoyed your presentations. Your presentation is really flawless, and it shows that you are an expert in the particular field. I have seen one more question in the chat box. You might have noticed that someone has asked about important is veracity and value of data in the data analytics. So you can answer to that.
Yeah. Yes. Come again, sir. Sorry. How velocity?
How veracity and value of data in the data analytics, how important is?
Okay. Right. I think when you talk about velocity and value, see, there are, it's a really good question. See, it all depends on when you talk about velocity, it depends on the context, right? The classical example, what we saw in aerospace engineering, I just go up over here to quickly talk about it, just few lines only. See, when you talk about velocity, the rate at which the data flows in plays a key role as far as aerospace dynamics are concerned. Right, and it all depends on for example, if there's a manufacturing industry, probably the velocity, the rate at which the data is coming in, the rate at which you model the data, probably it may not be on every second, right? Probably every 1 hour, probably you may get a data. Or maybe I've given example of Caterpillar, where every second the data is being observed and the data is being stored up. Okay, where the criticality, the mission criticality plays a key role when it comes to velocity is concerned. So it all depends on what kind of an application on which you want to do data analysis. Okay, and mission critical, like for example, the cement manufacturing industry, where it's called it's called mass production, right? It's called process industry, right? Not mass production. Sorry, process industry, where continually running, your machines are running. Where in that particular case, the downtime of a particular system in this whole link is going to be critical. Reliability plays a key role. So in that case, velocity plays a key role. So in such situations where your velocity of data plays a key role, how fast it comes in, how fast you're able to take it up and do forward with. Okay. Second one is value. Exactly. See, I talked about the variables which are influencing on the life of a part, right? There are about 30 variables, but you need to really to understand which are the variables are critical for you to ensure that your parts are being replaced on time. So the variable that you choose should have a value in terms of your efficiency or in terms of your reliability in the case of machine, right? For example, the variable that you choose in the case of retail that I showed you, where I don't worry about how many parameters you take, but at the end of the day, are you able to add $1 extra in my business revenue is what plays a key role. So the value of the input variable that you take, that depends upon the context. In the retail, it's about dollar. In terms of reliability, it talks about in terms availability, it's about reliability. So for different domain, different systems where the variable that you choose and the variable that has got a value plays a key role, right? So yes, please.
Kumar, he says about veracity, VERACAT. What is that? Veracity.
Right. I think you have 5, 6, so on and so forth. If you could browse through, where you have 3 V's you talk about, you have 5 V's, 6 V's, 7 V's. Things keep changing. Yeah. That's where if you look at over there, it's just more of like everything comes into this 3 V's. You have 5 V's, 6 V's, 7 V's, so on and so forth. Yeah. In my opinion, it's a combination of velocity and volume. Versatility is also another one. Okay. Yeah.
I have 1 or 2 questions to you, just for understanding purpose. Suppose a computer engineer does computer data analytics for a particular system. Suppose the data analytics done by a mechanical engineer. What would be the difference in approach, or can we land at a common solution or similar solutions for the particular problem? Will it be varied in nature?
Okay, that's a very good question. I think we need to really understand what kind of a problem that we're trying to solve. Okay, in the sense, yeah, plays a key role. Let's say if you're trying to solve a high-tech problem, okay, where you do a data analytics. In that case, probably an electronics engineer can bring in some sort of a business knowledge into it. Right, mechanical engineer may have some limited knowledge. So, in my opinion, the team in which I work on, this earlier team, I have about 10 people are working under me. Where I had computer science folks, I had mechanical engineers, I had electronics engineers. So, to precisely answer your question, that depends on the context. If a business problem is more towards computer science related, if a computer science engineer does it, probably he can bring more business knowledge into it. A mechanical engineer can give thoughts in his direction. But the point is, what I'm trying to over here is, it's all about like culmination. Data science work is done by the combination of more than one skills. That is when you're valued, you're being mechanical, you're valued, plays a key role when it comes to the system which you operate. It all depends on the system. It all depends on the problem that you handle. And definitely a programmer can do efficient algorithm programming. Just to give you an example. A mechanical engineer, just in case you're able to look at selection of an algorithm, you may do it well. For example, if the problem is a mechanical engineering problem, and a computer science person can help you to improve your velocity to a greater extent, or maybe your efficiency of programming may be higher. But you being a mechanical engineer probably help him out to pick up the right algorithm. For example, you talked about Cox regression model. He may say that let's pick up a similarity-based RL model. Basically, probably would have studied in computer science, but you weren't able to say that, no, it's not that one. You can pick up this algorithm. So what I was trying to say is all depends on what problem that you work. It is always a synergy that has to go along with. It is not one person's one man story, one man orbit. It's going to be a combination. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Suppose a pure mechanical engineer want to become an expertise or to have some adequate knowledge on data analytics. How to start learning, Mr. Singh?
Okay, it's a pretty open-ended check, right? In my opinion, the one who had asked, and I think you represented the whole community, I tell you this, as simple as that, just spend more time, just understand about what's happening in the context. I talked about Industry 4.0, right? Something like that. First thing is start exploring what are all the things that are there in the Google, number one. Number two is you should have a bend towards that computer science. I talked about data science, right? If you have an inclination towards programming, I tell you, friends, 2 sides of a coin. right? One is about your mechanical engineering skill, and second one is computer skill, programming skill. If these skills, if you think you have it, you can proceed with that. I have seen many of them where they say, I'm good at mechanical engineering, I can do mathematics, but don't give me programming, right? So if that's like other side of a coin. So one is about interest, second about how you can hone your skills towards becoming data scientist. So that is very important. Core mechanical engineering skill with the programming, inclination, interest, understanding, and you have to dirty your hands. If somebody has got that inclination, you can be a full-fledged data scientist. Or otherwise, you can have 70% as a core mechanical engineering guy, and 30% you can do a little bit on data science.
Suppose if you like to give some final year projects to the students in data analytics, can you suggest a few projects so that we can think of in that line?
Okay.
Just you can suggest the project titles so that students can think of.
Sure. Maybe I do one thing. I will just think through and I'll share some couple of project titles to Professor Senthil. I can do that out. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So really, we had a good presentation. Initially, we have started with the analytics types based on Gartner. Then how data flows you told. Later, you are saying that data is an oil field. You have to extract it. So all these things you have started with the basic content. Then you have linked how the data science is working with the deep learning, then machine learning and artificial intelligence, and the various skills required like Python or R, SAS, like that we have to understand, and how to apply for the project. All these things you have presented. It's a really very, very interesting, and it motivated our students and participants to work in these aspects. I am really thankful to Dr. Kumar Rajasingh for sparing your valuable time with us. Thank you.
Right.
If there is no question, then we can conclude the session. We will meet in some other session later.
Sure.
Thank you all.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for giving this opportunity. I also wanted to, at the outset, I wanted to thank the management and the principal, Dr. Alamu Madam, to given this opportunity. Thank you all, and thank you, students, for participating. Have a good day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kumar Rajasingh.
Thank you.